Welcome to Babblecom 5. This is episode 13 of season 2 of Babylon 5, Hunter, Prey. Sheridan and Ivanova have gone down to Bay 13, which, as Garibaldi notes when looking for them, no one ever goes to, because that's where Kosh's Vorlon transport lives. Apparently, it's largely been sat there except for the few occasions Kosh has come and gone to the Vorlon homeworld. It appears very smooth, but scans have been very limited. They don't even know what sort of propulsion it uses. Its skin markings change over time. Sheridan makes the mistake of reaching out to it when it grows a protrusion that shines a beam onto his chest. He backs off and it retracts. Apparently the last maintenance crew wouldn't come back. They said the ship was talking to them in their dreams. So the bay is quarantined. Sheridan decides it's high time someone found out more about the Vorlon ambassador, and he tasks himself with the job. Garibaldi catches up with them, but decides to speak away from the ship. Kosh emerges from the shadows and communicates with his ship, which displays a series of characters across its hull. Kosh acknowledges this and leaves. Garibaldi explains that Dr. Jacobs, who used to be on the presidential staff, has become the subject of a fugitive alert with extreme sanction authorised, to Sheridan's surprise, as he's a civilian. If he resists, he's to be killed on sight, which leads Sheridan to question just what he knows. Allegedly, the good doctor has been delving into things he shouldn't have, and so Earth Force Special Intelligence Agent Cranston wants to try and stop him offloading his information and getting away from their jurisdiction. Sheridan offers his full cooperation, whilst Ivanova and Garibaldi exchange glances. Sheridan does appear to be taking the issue seriously, however, and Garibaldi's first stop is Franklin, because obviously Franklin knows every Earth Force related doctor. Okay, on this occasion he does, and vouches for Jacobs, with Garibaldi wryly reminding us of the last time he did that in season 1, which led to an alien war machine punching holes in the station, with several fatalities. In the markets of the station, Jacobs is trying to get his hands on an identity card so he can legitimise himself, but the fixer realises he wants it too much and decides not to assist. Smart man. Someone watches from the shadows as he moves off. Sheridan notices Kosh in the corridor and decides to speak with him, ostensibly about non-refugees, but then about his ship and his appearance in his dream on the Stribe ship. Kosh says he was listening for a song, and Sheridan's thoughts became a song. He says he was seeking understanding. He takes his leave, having been downright chatty for a Vorlon. Cranston is briefing his troops. 10-hour shifts. Apparently Jacobs has an implant that they can detect at close range, which will help to a degree, but as Zack observes, it's a big station. Garibaldi tells Sheridan they're not subtle, but they know their stuff. Sheridan notices a red ribbon on a bulkhead and goes to meet a contact of General Haig's, who says he's in danger, that they've been fed a story about Jacobs. Jammer on. So basically, Jacobs knows Clark wasn't ill before Earth Force One went up, meaning that he knew what was planned for it and jumped ship beforehand. Had he acted against Jacobs too soon, it would have been suspicious, so he's been watched until he can have an accident. Haig's group got him out, but he got nervous and took an unplanned trip to Babylon 5, which means they're improvising, and Sheridan can't pull Special Intelligence back without tipping his hand. Tricky. Sheridan links into Garibaldi, who in turn sends a hidden text message to Franklin. Jacobs is using stims to stay awake, and records a message to his wife saying he can't sleep, otherwise they'll find him. Zack comes close with a scanner, but he manages to get behind a door that blocks the signal. Zack and his colleague report the blip anyway, which means that Garibaldi, loaded for bear, and Franklin have a starting point for their search as they set out in casual clothes to try and retrieve the doctor. Jacobs unfortunately runs into the man who clocked him at the market, who knows he's worth something to someone. Even more unfortunately, he's a very thorough criminal and finds both a data crystal and an antique watch gifted him by the president, so now he has 2 items to trade. Cranston fills Sheridan and Ivanova in on progress, but Sheridan manages to divert him away from down below to downtown, a made-up name for a heavy engineering area that Ivanova says has been sealed up since the station went online, that is going to leave his team smelling of anything but roses, because that's where the station's waste goes. Sheridan figures that will buy Garibaldi several hours to beat his own teams. Then Kosh calls for Sheridan, which Ivanova notes is unheard of. Stephen and Garibaldi are drawing blanks, and they pause to eat briefly, with Garibaldi asking about Franklin's history with Jacobs and their previously rosy view of how the future was going to be. As Garibaldi notes, some assembly required, perhaps. Just then, Franklin spots the distinctive antique watch being bartered for at the stall of the fixer from earlier. Garibaldi flashes his PPG to encourage the conversation along. Meanwhile, his target is having a little chat with Cranston. Sheridan goes to see Kosh and has something approaching a conversation with him, asking him what do you want when they go round in circles without understanding one another. This causes Kosh to spin around and warn him never to ask that question, which of course is what Mr. Morden asked the other ambassadors in Signs and Portents. Sheridan notes that Kosh seems to be watching him, that he never turned up to council meetings before he came on board. Kosh relents and tells him that he will help him understand himself so that he is able to fight legends. Garibaldi has located Jacob's position, but forgets a rule he ought to have learned by now, to watch his back. This time it just results in him getting skewered, and Franklin deals with the attacker, but the job's not done because the data crystal is still with Max, who does resemble Max Headroom with his shades on. Happily, Garibaldi is now in exactly the right mood to encourage Max to cough it up, which he does in lieu of getting turned into Swiss cheese by PPG fire. Unfortunately, Mr. Cranston has just woken up to the fact that the station's internal sensors have previously been used to locate energy signatures, and asks why he wasn't told this before. As Ivanova gives Sheridan an escape route, she happily tells Mr. Cranston that he didn't ask, and that assuming their systems are compatible, it'll take 2.3 hours to link them. Dr. Jacobs hands over the crystal, which details all his examinations before and after Earth Force One's destruction, showing Clark was fine at all times. Whilst this is all well and good, getting Jacobs off the station remains a problem, as Garibaldi notes that they have all the docking bays covered. Sheridan notes that's not entirely correct, leading Garibaldi to comment that Sheridan's got a plan. With the patch complete, the sensor sweep is initiated and finds nothing. Sheridan feigns annoyance that his station's been turned upside down for no good reason. Kosh's ship had been held requesting clearance to leave while the scan took place, and is now clear to launch, but Cranston demands it be scanned, which it duly is, revealing only one life form, an alien one. Sheridan offers to recall it, which would of course cause a major incident, but Cranston backs down, with Sheridan asking Ivanova to give full assistance in determining any alternative destinations for Dr. Jacobs. Sheridan barely resists entering into full smoke mode. Kosh's ship returns, but it did have Dr. Jacobs on board, albeit in a coma and concealed in a way that shielded him from the scan. Kosh wasn't on board, which means the alien life sign was the ship itself, confirming that the Vorlons use organic technology, and the ship is alive and sentient to some degree, because it knew the command crew were waiting for Dr. Jacobs to be delivered to them, and only then passed him over to be revived. Dr. Jacobs says he thinks the ship sank to him while he was in his induced coma. Sheridan hands the data crystal over to his contact, who departs, saying hopefully he shall see him again, because this is only the first step, and if there isn't another, then they'll have lost the war. So, here we have an episode that rather nicely intertwines some Kosh development with just how bonkers things are going to get with Sheridan's command staff a hair's breadth away from interfering with other Earth Force factions by taking their anti-Clark stance seriously. It's also quite funny that Garibaldi references back to an earlier episode in the first season, where Franklin again knows a random doctor visiting the station who used to teach him. This isn't the only other in-series continuity pickup either, with Sheridan noting Kosh's dream visitations to him in All Alone in the Night, amongst other callbacks. Let me first note something that I think confused me a little on my first ever watching of this episode. When they scan Kosh's ship, they are able to identify it as an alien life form, whereas previously they seemed to know nothing about the ship. More than that, it's not explained why the Doctor isn't detected, but I did notice this time that he was effectively wrapped in a cocoon of the ship's organic matter, and he'd been placed in a coma ostensibly for security reasons, so I'm guessing that between those two factors, B5 scanners were only able to detect the dominant non-human life sign. Now presumably Sheridan knew Kosh wasn't on board because he'd set it up with him, but of course the C&C crew would assume the life form was Kosh's reading, not his ship's. Otherwise there would have been two readings, which would have gotten Cranston excited. It does beg the question as to whether Earth Force will officially know Kosh's ship was organic off the back of this, because Sheridan would be showing his subterfuge if he acknowledged Kosh was still on the station in order to keep the ship's nature secret. Yes, I overthink things. I like to think of it as endearing. Others tend to start throwing things at me. So, obviously some fun exploration of Kosh and his ship in this episode, and by far and away the most interaction we've really seen Kosh have with a human. The ship design always impressed me. Graphically, it was a beautiful thing, and the petals folding and unfolding for whatever reason made it interesting and properly alien. I read a little around fan theories around it before coming to write this up, and there's an agreement that there's a degree of independent sentience happening, possibly even that the ship is some extension of Kosh himself. The fact that it can sing to people suggests some low-level telepathic ability similar to what Kosh did to Sheridan in All Alone in the Night. Sheridan's subsequent exchange with Kosh, and the fact that he's realised Kosh is showing an unusual interest in him, leads to some genuine relationship building between the two of them, which for the Vorlon is utterly unheard of to this point, so you immediately have to wonder what he sees in Sheridan to be willing to help him understand himself and fight legends. Why would Kosh bother to do this? What does he get out of it? Isn't he in fact a legend as well as, presumably, the ancient enemy that Jakar has been foretelling? Or is there something else in play? The fact that Kosh essentially lends Sheridan his ship certainly suggests that he's prepared to support Sheridan for whatever reason, but we're not privy to that conversation, and it's unclear why Kosh would be prepared to intervene as he does on this occasion. We also see some nice Garibaldi-Franklin development, plus Garibaldi a little bit more unchained than he often is, as if he's getting a little lost in the dark detective role. He'll be putting on a cowl and a cape next. It's fun though, watching the background activity down below as they talk. It's the sort of attention to detail that makes it feel like a natural living place rather than just a set. You can also play Spot the Ranger this episode. Sheridan, it seems, is now living out one of his pet conspiracy theories that he likes to collect, as he has several little rendezvous with a Hague contact. Can't say that she's overly sympathetic to his issues, but I suppose she's just telling it as it is when push comes to shove. The funny thing is that there are lots of conference rooms with no doors where they often talk about the conspiracy. I hope they've got some sort of motion detectors for lurkers. Ivanova plays her running interference part of the various plans delightfully nefariously. It really is a fun part to watch Claudia playing. Speaking of interference, I do feel quite sorry for Cranston. He may well be genuinely unaware that he's on a dodgy mission, and even Garibaldi has to grudgingly admit that his team are very efficient. And incidentally, the reason that they're using his particular branch of government is that he's directly under the control of the president, whereas other elements of it may not be. So that's why he's been tasked with hunting Jacobs down. I should also mention that the Dr. Jacobs part is interesting as well. Clearly a man caught in the middle of both sides, and his recording a message home for his wife in case he didn't make it was rather touching. Also a nice touch where he contradicts Franklin's statement about his first aid course score. I do wonder how they got him into the officers' quarters without being spotted. Do they not have CCTV? This, I think, ranks up there as one of the non-critical, yet simultaneously actually critical, episodes of Season 2, where the depth of the story layering has been increased even if nothing earth-shattering has really gone on. It's one of the strengths of the show that it can universe build so effectively in this fashion, episode by episode, as we peel back a little more of the overall direction of the plot. So I'll leave it here and catch you for the next one. Thanks.